Harry has fallen in love with someone who, I don't want to say lives in Montecito or near Montecito.
A woman his own age, living near Montecito, and messages on Harry's phone that his wife has already found. That is the claim Lady Colin Campbell made this week, and she attached one line to it that should stop anyone in their tracks. She will not say the woman's name. Legal reasons, no photograph, no second source, nothing that would survive 5 minutes in a courtroom.
Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love.
And yet, the reaction across the royal press was not shock. Nobody who has watched this marriage since that Paris car clip last autumn even blinked. Not one commentator, not one comment section. Why not? What was actually said? Start with the wording, because the wording is doing a great deal of work. The claim comes from Lady Colin Campbell, and it is specific in some places and deliberately vague in others. She says Harry has met a woman roughly his own age. She says the two of them are in love. She says the woman lives in the environs of Montecito, and she refuses to say whether that means the town itself or somewhere nearby. She says people have seen them together, and she says Meghan discovered it the way it usually gets discovered, by finding texts on his phone. She also says, on camera, that she is being careful for legal reasons.
Prince Harry, by your very well-sourced report, has fallen in love with another woman.
That is not a throwaway line. That is a broadcaster telling her own audience precisely how much weight the claim can carry. So here is the ledger. There is no photograph, no named source, no second outlet standing any of it up independently, no statement from Montecito, which normally has an answer ready for everything. This is a claim made by one commentator, uncorroborated at the time of recording, and it should be held that way for the entire length of this video, which raises the question that actually matters. If there is nothing behind it, why did it travel like a fact? The answer is not in this week. It is in a courtroom in June 2023. The testimony nobody rereads. Before Meghan, there was Chelsea Davy, Zimbabwean, blonde, famously unbothered by protocol, and by every account from that period, the one girlfriend who slotted into his life without wanting a single thing from it. They were on and off for the best part of 7 years, from roughly 2004 to 2011. People close to that relationship have described it in the same terms ever since. He loved her, she loved him, they had a genuinely good time, and the thing that made it work was that the royal machinery meant nothing to her. It was not a prize she was competing for. It was an inconvenience she tolerated. When Harry took Mirror Group newspapers to trial in June 2023,
the world met Chelsea Davy when she began dating Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, in 2004.
He did not open with press reform or grand constitutional principle. He opened with her. He told the court, in his own written evidence, that the tabloids poisoned that relationship until it could not survive. The detail he gave was not vague emotional color. It was granular, constant surveillance, paranoia that never switched off, the sense that he was being watched around the clock and could not trust anyone standing near him, a tracking device discovered on her car, private arguments between the two of them turning up in print, which meant somebody inside his own circle was selling him, a gloating headline on the day they finally ended, written up like a result. He said the same suspicion rotted his friendships, that he ended up doubting people he had known since school, unable to work out which of them was talking. That is the detail worth pausing on, because it explains a great deal of what came later. A man in his early 20s, being shown by the evidence in front of him that somebody in every room he walked into was on a payroll, learning to treat every friendship as a possible leak. Nobody comes out of that period the same shape they went in, and the people who knew him then have said as much ever since. Then, in Spare, published in January 2023, he went considerably further than anybody had asked him to. He, as good as admitted he could not bring himself to pull Chelsea into that life permanently, that he was frightened of what the press would do to her, and most remarkably that if the choice had ever genuinely been his, he would not have wanted the life either. That is a working member of the royal family stating on the record that he would have walked away from the entire institution if somebody had given him the door. She was not the only one who ran. Cressida Bonus, the girlfriend who came immediately afterwards, reached the same conclusion and left for the same reason. Two women, both by all accounts fond of him, both of whom looked directly at what came attached to him and decided it was not survivable. Then, in May 2018, Chelsea Davy sat in St. George's Chapel and watched him marry Meghan Markle, smiling for the cameras alongside everybody else. Consider the geometry of that room. In one direction, the woman who ran from the cameras and kept running. In the other, the woman who would eventually arrive with a Netflix crew of her own. And in the middle, a man who had spent years telling anyone who would listen that the attention was the thing that had ruined his life. He did not escape the circus. He married into a larger one and shipped the tent to California. And the strangest part is that the courts eventually agreed with him. The paper trail.
The Duke of Sussex has been awarded £140,000 after bringing a High Court phone hacking claim against Mirror Group newspapers.
This is the section that gets skipped, and it is the one that makes everything after it land differently. On December 15th, 2023, Mr. Justice Fancourt handed down judgment in Harry's case against Mirror Group newspapers. He did not throw it out. He found that unlawful information gathering had been widespread and habitual at the group across the mid-2000s, that a number of articles about Harry were the product of it, and he awarded the Duke £140,600 in damages. Harry did not attend the ruling in person. His solicitor read a statement outside court, calling it a great day for truth. Whatever anyone thinks of the man now, that is not a grievance he invented in Montecito. It is a finding of the High Court of England and Wales, with a number attached to it. He has a second front open too, a claim against Associated Newspapers, publisher of the Daily Mail, over allegations the publisher has consistently and strenuously denied. In evidence connected to that litigation, he described what had been done to the Chelsea relationship using a single word: nightmare. It is worth being exact about what that ruling did and did not do. It did not vindicate everything Harry has ever said about the press, and Fancourt rejected a number of the individual articles Harry had put forward, finding they were not the product of unlawful activity. Harry did not win the case he described in interviews. He won a narrower version of it, on specific articles, with specific findings, and the judgment is publicly available for anyone who wants to check that for themselves, rather than take a commentator's word for it. But narrower is not nothing. A serving member of the British royal family took a national newspaper group to trial, and a judge agreed that unlawful methods had been used against him. So, the record on this point is unusually clear. Harry said the press destroyed the first relationship that made him happy. A judge later found that at least one newspaper group had been breaking the law while covering him during exactly that period. He was not being paranoid about the surveillance. He was being accurate, which makes the events of last autumn very difficult to file anywhere comfortable. The wrong stretch of riverbank. Paris Fashion Week. Meghan is in the city for the Balenciaga show and posts a short clip to her own Instagram account. Nighttime, back seat of a car, city lights sliding across the glass, and there she is, reclined with her heels up on the seat, filming her own shoes as the car moves along the Seine. It went off like a firework, and not because of the shoes. That stretch of riverbank sits less than a mile from the Pont de l'Alma underpass, where Harry's mother died in a car, at night, pursued by photographers on 31st August, 1997. Of every road in Paris, that was the one where the phone came out. Her representative said afterwards that she had not realized how close she was. Take that at face value, or don't. But notice that both readings are difficult. Either she genuinely did not know where she was in the one city on Earth where her husband's mother was killed, or she knew precisely and pressed record anyway. Nobody has yet offered a third option. Commentators who normally rush to defend her would not go near this one. The reaction was blunt, and it was close to universal. How does anyone spend a day making content in that city, on that road, and not think about her husband once? One royal commentator sat there openly bewildered on air, saying he could not begin to construct an explanation for it. The context sharpens it further. She was not in Paris for anything solemn. She was there for Fashion Week, front row, her own schedule, her own. That moment. Now set that beside what Harry had said publicly only a couple of years earlier. After a paparazzi pursuit through New York in May 2023, his spokesperson described a near-catastrophic car chase, and Harry named the fear directly. That history was repeating itself. His mother, a car, cameras in the dark. That clip is the moment a very large number of people quietly stop defending this marriage. And once anyone looks at the calendar instead of the captions, it gets considerably worse. Subscribe before the next section, because the diary is where this stops being interpretation and starts being arithmetic. 2. Diaries, One Marriage. If you want to know whether a marriage is in trouble, don't read the statements. Read the calendar. Take a single month this year. In May, Meghan flew to Geneva alone to give a headline speech. Her own stage, her own standing ovation, no Harry within 1,000 miles of the room. Days before that, she had flown to Chicago, also alone, also without the children. Neither trip was an oddity slotted into an otherwise shared life. They were part of a pattern she has been building steadily. Look at the rest of the run. A museum gala, attended alone. A children's hospital gala, attended alone. In a dress she had worn years earlier. A pledge dinner, a red carpet, a tribute evening for her friend Tyler Perry. Every one of those is a night out where the seat a husband would occupy was filled by somebody else or left empty. One tabloid count put it at more than 40 days since Harry had last been photographed at her side. Treat the tabloid arithmetic with as much salt as it deserves. The shape it describes is harder to dismiss because it is visible in the photographs of every one of those events. Set that beside the version of this couple sold to the public in 2020. Two people so inseparable they could not be split across two engagements, who left an 800-year-old institution together rather than be managed separately, and whose entire pitch was that the partnership was the point. 6 years later, she does a European speaking engagement, a Midwestern trip, a museum evening, a hospital gala, and a red carpet. And he appears at none of them. Not one. That is not a scheduling clash. That is two people running two lives out of the same postcode. There is a version of this that is entirely innocent, and it deserves saying plainly. Two small children at home means one parent is usually not at the party. That is true in every household on Earth, royal or otherwise. But the innocent version does not survive contact with the detail because the pattern is not one parent staying home while the other works. It is both of them traveling separately in different directions to different continents in the same weeks. There has even been chatter about a vow renewal being floated to Steady Things, which is its own quiet admission. Nobody reaches for a vow renewal while the original set is still doing its job. And it runs in both directions, which is the part people skip. Harry keeps flying back to Britain without her. Again this month, the same as the last time and the time before that. He will not stay in royal accommodation when he is there. She does not come. The children do not come. The official explanation is the security dispute. And that is where this gets genuinely awkward because the security dispute is real, documented, and has been through 3 courts. The argument that cuts both ways. In February 2020, after the couple stepped back, the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, RAVEC, decided Harry would no longer receive the same automatic police protection in the UK and would instead be assessed case by case. He challenged that decision by judicial review. In February 2024, the High Court dismissed his claim. Sir Peter Lane found the decision was not unlawful or irrational. He appealed. On May 2nd, 2025, the Court of Appeal dismissed that appeal too. Harry gave a BBC interview the same day, and it is the most revealing thing he has said in years. He said he could not see a world in which he would bring his wife and children back to the United Kingdom. He said he would love a reconciliation with his family. He said his father would not speak to him. He said, in a line that got quoted everywhere, that he did not know how much longer his father had left. So, the security argument is not an excuse he invented. It is a losing legal position he has now argued in front of 3 sets of judges. But notice what it conveniently permits. The single obstacle preventing this devoted husband from bringing his family home is the same obstacle that permits him to cross the Atlantic alone, repeatedly, whenever the mood takes him. He has said openly that he wants to bring Meghan and the children over. Wants to, has not. And none of this started with a phone. Spreadsheet, not the phone. Lay the whole thing out as a timeline, and the shape becomes hard to argue with. January 2020, the Sandringham Summit and the announcement. March 2020, their final engagements as working royals. March 2021, the Oprah interview. December 2022, the Netflix series. January 2023, Spare. And then, quietly, no announcement, no interview. The split of the working life. separate Instagram accounts, her Netflix deal, and her lifestyle brand on one side, his Invictus Games and his polo project on the other. Separate teams, separate output, separate money. The commentary at the time was almost approving, a professional separation, very grown up, very modern, very Californian. But consider what that split meant for two people whose entire public argument had been that they only worked as a unit. That was the case they made when they left. That was the case they made to Oprah. And then, without much fanfare, they concluded that the together part was bad for business. Her brand pulled one way, his pulled the other. They stopped appearing in each other's projects. They stopped appearing in each other's announcements. And even the photographs thinned out, until the ones that surfaced were mostly work. Nobody files a business divorce from a person they are still besotted with. The separate lives did not begin with a phone and a set of messages. They began with a spreadsheet, and everybody watching signed it off as strategy. By the time a rumor arrived, the structure it was supposed to have broken had already been dismantled, in public, with press releases. The word they keep using here is the register the story is now discussed in, and it is worth being precise about who is saying what, because none of it is neutral and none of it is evidence. A major figure in American television has sat on air and described Meghan as a malignant narcissist in those words. Harry's biographers have called her one of the most bitter and unreconciled people they have dealt with. Her half-sister, Samantha Markle, asked directly whether Meghan had ruined Harry, answered yes without hesitating, and described what she claims to see in every photograph. Meghan taking his hand, steering him, standing in front of him, running the room as though she is the only star in it. A woman who knew Meghan socially before Harry has said she experienced the same pattern personally, and calls her a ruthless social climber who removes people the moment they stop being useful. Now, the necessary sentence. Every one of those is opinion, loud, confident, well-compensated opinion, offered by people with books to sell and airtime to fill, and not one of them constitutes evidence of anything. None of it has been tested in front of a judge, none of it is sworn, and several of the people saying it have never met her. Samantha Markle, in particular, sued her half-sister for defamation and lost. A U.S. court dismissed the case. What all of it establishes is the weather. This is what has been said about his wife, on television and in print every week for years. And it is worth asking what 6 years of that does to the man standing beside her, because he has visibly shrunk inside the frame. This is a grown prince who at one point had to publicly deny or report that his own wife talks over him in his own meetings. Nobody issues a denial like that unless the thing being denied is already what the world assumes. Then there is the homesickness he has stopped being able to disguise. Last year he wrote, for anyone to read, that Britain will always be the country he proudly served. Royal watchers who cannot stand him read that line and landed in exactly the same place, which almost never happens. One commentator called him desperately lonely out there. Another reckons he is waiting on a phone call from his brother that is not coming. The people who knew him longest describe someone they no longer recognize. The loud, warm, larking about Harry a generation grew up watching has been sanded down into a careful, watchful figure who reads the room before he opens his mouth. People who have known him for 30 years say the light has gone out, not dimmed, gone, and nobody saying it seems to be enjoying saying it. The Birmingham problem. There is one more piece on the board, and it explains why the timing of all this matters more than it looks. The next Invictus Games are due in Birmingham in 2027. It is Harry's project, the one thing he built himself that nobody can accuse him of inheriting, and it is coming to the United Kingdom. That gives him something he has not had since 2020, a legitimate, unarguable, publicly welcome reason to be in Britain, on a stage, doing the one job the British public still gives him credit for. Royal commentators have spent months speculating about what he does with that. The version doing the rounds is that the plan involves Archie and Lilibet appearing on UK soil around the games, the first time either child would be seen there since infancy. Nobody has confirmed it. It is speculation about intentions, and intentions are the least verifiable thing in this entire story. But hold it next to the timeline. A man who told the BBC in May 2025 that he could not see a world in which he would bring his family back now has a fixed date, a legitimate platform, and a reason to change that position. And separately, a claim has surfaced that there is somebody in California making him newly enthusiastic about the journey home. Those two things do not have to be connected. They simply arrived in the same year, pointing the same direction. The case against all of this. Now, the other side, because a case that cannot survive its own rebuttal is not a case. Every single thing above is circumstantial. Couples attend events separately all the time, particularly when one has small children at home and the other is in the middle of protracted litigation abroad. Separating two brands is ordinary commercial practice, not a marital signal. Plenty of married founders run different companies. The Paris clip may genuinely have been thoughtless rather than cruel. People do not always know which road they are on in a foreign city at night. The security dispute is documented, and it is not obviously a pretext. If a court has told a man his family's protection cannot be guaranteed, declining to bring his children into the country is the reasonable response, not the suspicious one. And the affair claim itself has no photograph, no named source, no corroboration, and comes from a commentator who openly flagged her own legal exposure while making it. There is also the small matter of the track record. This same commentary industry has confidently predicted the end of this marriage roughly once a quarter since 2018. It predicted it before the wedding, during the pregnancy, after Oprah, after Spare, and after every solo trip either of them has taken. A prediction made continuously for 8 years is not analysis. It is a standing bet, and one day it will pay out through sheer persistence rather than insight. It is entirely possible that this is a strained marriage under enormous external pressure, being narrated by people who profit from predicting its collapse and have been wrong about the timing every single time so far. Hold that thought while looking at what changed this week. The flip. For years, the story ran one way. Meghan in charge, Harry a step behind carrying the bags, grateful to be in the room. Every headline, every documentary, every panel worked off that same script. This week, it turned over. Lady C says Meghan went through Harry's phone and found messages. She says there is a woman of his own age somewhere near Montecito, and that this is why there is suddenly a spring in his step about coming home. Still no proof, still one source, still no corroboration. The internet went one step further and attached a name, a media executive, identified off the back of a single photograph at a party. There is not a shred of evidence behind that name, so she stays out of this. Nobody's life should be rearranged off a screenshot. That is not squeamishness. It is the difference between commentary and something a court would take an interest in. A private individual who once stood near a famous man at a party has done nothing, has no platform to answer from, and has no way of unringing the bell once a name is attached to a rumor and pushed at an audience of millions. Strip the name out and the rumor still travels. And that is the actual finding here, not whether it is true. The fact that after a court judgment, a Paris clip, a split calendar, and a dismantled partnership, an affair claim about Prince Harry does not read as a bombshell. It reads as the next scheduled item. The comment sections proved it in a way no commentator could. The most liked response was not sympathy and not scandal, but a woman asking who on earth would want Harry now. Subscribe because this is nowhere near finished. And the moment the next solo trip quietly gets booked, we will be straight back here taking it apart. Then tell me in the comments where you land. Is Harry a victim who lost his way, or did he get precisely what he chose? I read every single one of them, honestly. But picture him in that chapel in May 2018. 33 years old, in front of him, a woman with a global career about to begin. Behind him in the pews, a woman who had already run from everything he was standing in. He had told a courtroom what this life costs. He signed up anyway. And 8 years on, the man being whispered about is the one who thought he was escaping.